Stop what you're doing for a second, because a story is going viral that, if it's even remotely true, would flip the power structure of pro football on its head. The claim is that Shedeur Sanders just got offered a European football deal so wild the NFL can't really compete with it. Massive guaranteed money, equity ownership, full brand control, and even a path back to the league without getting punished for it. And the reason this blew up isn't just the numbers. It's Deion Sanders' reaction. Coach Prime reportedly celebrated like this was more than a contract. It was a victory over the entire system. The kind of moment that tells every young quarterback, you don't have to play by their rules. Now, to be clear, a lot of this is still unconfirmed, and the internet loves to run with rumors. But the question is bigger than one headline. What happens when the NFL finally loses its leverage? Because if players can buy freedom, the game changes. Here's the part most people skip. The viral story isn't just Shedeur to Europe. It's the specific terms being attached to it. Reports floating around online claim Shedeur Sanders has a European football offer on the table worth $150 million fully guaranteed plus 2% equity ownership in the league itself, plus full brand control plus a 2-year window that supposedly lets him return to the NFL with no penalties . That's not a normal contract, that's a power grab. And that's exactly why it spread like wildfire, because those terms don't just pay a player, they change who has the leverage. They basically turn a quarterback into a partner instead of an employee. But here, the reality check. As of right now, this story lives in that messy zone where it's loud online and thin on confirmation. No verified contract documents. No clear statement from a major, established outlet confirming every detail. No official announcement that matches the size of the numbers being repeated. That doesn't automatically mean it's fake. Sports business deals can be negotiated quietly, but it does mean you shouldn't treat it like gospel just because it's trending. And the numbers matter because European football leagues, including the * European League of Football (ELF), simply aren't known for handing out NFL-level guarantees. Their revenue, TV infrastructure, and salary ecosystems are in a completely different universe. So when you hear $150 million guaranteed, the immediate question is, would Shedeur take it? The question is, where is that money coming from and who is backing it? That's why the smart way to read this is to separate the claim into pieces. Guaranteed money is one thing. Equity is another, brand control is another, and that return to the NFL clause is its own category entirely, because it suggests a deal structured specifically to avoid the usual career trapdoors that keep players dependent on league decisions. So if you're trying to judge whether this has legs, don't look at the hype, look at the indicators. Are credible business reporters confirming it? Is there an agent or legal team attached to the terms? Is the league naming partners, investors, or financing? Is anyone official putting their name on the details? Until that happens, the safest framing is this. Rumors suggest a blockbuster offer, and Deion's emotional reaction is being used as the proof that something big is happening. But the public still doesn't have the paperwork. And that's where this gets even more interesting, because even if the numbers are exaggerated, the blueprint is crystal clear. Fully guaranteed security, ownership, control, options. And the moment those ideas enter the conversation for a quarterback, the NFL's entire contract culture gets put on trial, because the first word that scares the league is Europe. It's guaranteed. The NFL sells fans a fantasy with contract numbers. You'll see $200 million deal blasted everywhere, and it sounds like the player just secured generational wealth on paper. Then you read the structure and realize the truth. A huge chunk is often tied to roster bonuses, injury guarantees, offsets, or year-by-year triggers that can disappear the moment a team decides you're no longer convenient. That's not an accident. That's the system. The NFL has spent decades building a contract culture where teams keep the steering wheel. It's why players talk about security like it's a separate category from salary. Because in this league, the real flex isn't the headline number. It's the amount you get no matter what happens to your body, your coaching staff, or the front office's patience. So when a rumor starts circulating that a quarterback could get a massive deal that's fully guaranteed, it presses on the one nerve the NFL protects hardest: control. Fully guaranteed money doesn't just pay a player. It removes the team's favorite threat, the unspoken one. The do what we want or we'll restructure you, cut you, or replace you leverage that keeps negotiations tilted. When the money is locked, the power balance changes overnight. Now the player isn't fighting to earn the last 2 years of the deal. He already owns them, and the team has to actually manage him like an asset they can't easily discard. That's why fully guaranteed deals in the NFL are rare and controversial when they happen. Not because owners can't afford them. Because once you normalize them, you can't unnormalize them. One quarterback gets it, then the next one's agent walks in and says, "So we're doing guarantees now, right?" And suddenly, an entire industry built on flexibility starts feeling cornered. Now apply that to the Shedeur rumor. Even if the exact figure being thrown around is inflated, the concept is still explosive. A young quarterback having access to a guaranteed money alternative outside the NFL. Because here's the nightmare scenario for the league. Not Europe taking over. That's not the fear. The fear is options. The fear is a quarterback saying, "I don't have to accept your structure. I can take security somewhere else, build my brand globally, and come back on my terms." And if you think teams wouldn't care because it's not the NFL, ask yourself why this story is traveling so fast. It's not traveling because people love European football. It's traveling because it exposes how much of the NFL's power comes from being the only door. But the guarantee isn't even the part that could sting the most long-term. Because the next rumor detail is the one that turns a contract into a takeover: equity. The paycheck is loud, but equity is permanent. And if the rumors about this deal are even close to true, the *2% ownership ** angle is the part that would make NFL owners sit up straight. Because salary is what you get for playing. Ownership is what you get for existing. A player can sign for huge money, get hurt, decline, get replaced, and the checks eventually stop. But equity doesn't care if you throw 4 touchdowns or have a bad season. If the business grows, your stake grows. If the league expands, your stake matters more. If new media rights deals hit, your stake compounds. It's a completely different form of power, one that outlives your knees, your arm, and your highlight reel. That's why this equity rumor hits such a nerve. The NFL is built on the idea that players are the product but never the owners. You can be the face of the franchise. You can sell the jerseys. You can carry the ratings. But when the money truly multiplies, when the league grows, when the valuation skyrockets, players don't share in that ownership upside. They get paid. They don't get a piece. So when a story pops up saying a quarterback could become a partial owner of a football league while he's still in his early 20s, it isn't just smart business. It's a philosophical threat. It suggests a world where elite athletes start demanding not just better contracts, but equity participation ***, the same language tech founders and investors use. And the Sanders family is the perfect lightning rod for that conversation, because Deion has always treated sports like more than a game. He's been branding, negotiating, and building a business identity since the early days of his playing career. He's openly talked about generational wealth, controlling your image, and not letting institutions define your value. So when a rumor claims Shedeur's deal includes equity, it fits the public image people already have of Coach Prime. Not just a coach, but a strategist. Now here's the part we have to say clearly. We don't have verified proof that any league is handing out ownership stakes like candy. Equity is complicated. It comes with legal structure, valuation questions, governance, and long-term obligations. And 2% of a league is massive depending on what that league becomes. That's why the idea alone is enough to set the internet on fire. But even as a blueprint, it's powerful, because it shifts the conversation from "how much are you paying me?" to "what am I helping you build?" It frames the athlete as a partner in growth, not just a performer. And that's exactly why, if this is real, it's bigger than Shedeur. It would be a template. But there's one more clause being attached to this story that's even more destabilizing than equity, because it would let a player test the market, cash out, build leverage, and then walk back into the NFL like nothing happened. And that's the part that would truly change the rules. If the guaranteed money is the shock and the equity is the flex, the rumored return to the NFL with no penalties option is the part that turns this into a full-blown power play. Because the NFL doesn't just want to be the biggest league, it wants to be the final destination, the place where you have no meaningful alternative. So the rules are the rules, and you either accept them or sit out. That's how leverage works when you're the only door that matters. Now imagine a quarterback having a contract setup that basically says, "I can take 2 years elsewhere, keep my money secure, keep my brand controlled, and then re-enter the NFL world without losing anything." If that's true, it's not a detour, it's a strategy. It would mean a player can step outside the NFL ecosystem at the exact moment the league usually has the most control, early career, then come back older, more polished, financially protected, and with a larger global audience. In other words, the player would return with more leverage than he left with. That's the opposite of how pro sports has traditionally worked, where leaving the main league usually weakens your bargaining position. And that's why this clause, even as a rumored detail, is making people argue so hard, because it reframes the entire career ladder. In the traditional NFL pipeline, young quarterbacks are expected to accept the rookie-scale reality, prove themselves inside whatever situation they're drafted into, then hope the organization rewards them later. If you get drafted into dysfunction, that's your problem. If the coaching changes, that's your problem. If the roster is thin, that's your problem. You're expected to survive it, and only after years of proving it do you earn the power to negotiate. A 2-year return option blows that script up. It suggests a player can temporarily exit the chaos, secure his financial base, and then choose his next move from a position of strength. That's why owners would hate it, not because they're scared of European football, but because they're scared of players realizing they can create leverage outside the building. Now, to keep this honest, we have to say it again. We don't have verified documentation of this clause. Contracts that involve multiple leagues can be complicated, and the NFL has its own rules and contract structures that don't always play nicely with outside arrangements. So the zero penalties part is a big claim, and it deserves skepticism until real details are confirmed. But here, what makes it so believable to the internet? It fits the larger trend. Athletes are building escape hatches now. Nil money, personal media, global branding. These aren't just side hustles, they're ways to avoid being trapped. So if Shedeur's camp is even exploring a framework like this, it sends a message that's louder than any contract number. We don't have to wait for your permission to win. And that's why Deion's reaction matters so much. Because this isn't just about a deal, it's about a statement. And when Coach Prime gets emotional on camera, it usually means he's not just celebrating a win, he's rubbing a lesson in the face of everyone who doubted the plan. The moment this story caught fire wasn't when the dollar figure got posted. It was when people saw Deion Sanders reacting like somebody just beat the system. Because Deion doesn't do quiet wins. If he's proud, you're going to know. If he thinks the world tried to play his kid, he's going to remind you. And in the viral clips and posts being shared right now, that's the energy fans say they're seeing. Coach Prime looking emotional, almost stunned, like this wasn't just a contract rumor. It was a personal scoreboard finally flipping in his family's favor. Now, to keep it real, we have to separate two things at the same time. One, Deion is a father, a dad watching his son get picked apart for years, questioned in ways other quarterbacks never deal with, and judged on a last name as much as a stat line. If you followed the Sanders family at all, you know this part is genuine. Deion has never hidden how protective he is, or how much he takes disrespect personally. But two, Deion is also one of the smartest self-marketers sports has ever produced. He understands moments. He understands timing. He understands that a single emotional clip can do what 10 interviews can't: control the narrative. And if the rumor is that Shedeur is getting guaranteed money, equity, and brand control, then Deion's celebration isn't random. It's perfectly aligned. It tells every young athlete watching, you don't have to beg. It tells every parent, teach your kid leverage. And it tells every league executive, players are finally learning the language owners speak: ownership. That's why this reaction hits harder than a normal congrats post. It feels like a victory lap over a specific kind of criticism, the kind that says you should be grateful for whatever the NFL gives you, stay quiet, and earn the right to ask questions later. Deion's entire vibe in these moments is the opposite. Ask first, negotiate first, protect yourself first, then go play. And that's why people are split. Supporters see a father celebrating a generational win. Critics see Deion making it about him or creating noise. But even that backlash proves the point. The Sanders family doesn't just move, they create a reaction. And reactions are power in modern sports. So whether the deal details end up being confirmed, adjusted, or walked back, Deion already accomplished something important. He made the conversation bigger than one contract. He made it about control. And that's exactly where the backlash gets loud, because the next argument people throw is predictable. He's running from competition. But that isn't really what they're mad about, not deep down. The second this rumor hit mainstream sports talk, the criticism came in on schedule. The loudest line is the simplest one. He's avoiding the NFL. The idea is that if Shedeur Sanders is even considering a European route, it must mean he doesn't want the toughest competition, the toughest grind, the week-to-week pressure that real franchise quarterbacks are supposed to embrace. It sounds tough, it sounds old school, and it also ignores how modern sports actually works. Because competition isn't the only thing athletes compete over anymore. They compete over leverage. They compete over longevity. They compete over who gets to control the terms of their career instead of being controlled by them. And if the rumored package is even half accurate, guaranteed security, ownership upside, and the ability to keep options open, then calling it running is a strange way to describe a move that would require extreme confidence. Think about what staying in the NFL system can mean for a young quarterback. You can do everything right and still land in chaos. Coaching changes, personnel misses, a front office that's on the hot seat, a shaky line that turns every drop back into a hit. And the scary part is when that environment breaks a quarterback, the league often blames the quarterback anyway. Not the situation, not the protection, not the dysfunction, the player. So when critics say, take the hard road, what they're really saying is, accept the risk we're used to players accepting. Supporters push back with a different argument. Smart business isn't weakness, it's self-respect. If a 23-year-old can lock in life-changing guarantees, protect his brand, and potentially gain ownership in a growing product, why is he expected to apologize for maximizing the safest version of his value? Football is violent. Careers are short. The money can vanish fast. From that angle, the tough decision isn't staying. It's choosing the option that protects you even if something goes wrong. Now, to keep it fair, there's also a real football question underneath the debate. If the competition level outside the NFL is different, does that affect development, legacy, and long-term perception? That's a valid concern, but even that argument depends on what the deal actually is, what the league's infrastructure looks like, and what the real plan would be for training, coaching, and exposure. Right now, a lot of people are arguing from emotion instead of verified details. And then there's the subtext nobody admits. Some of the anger doesn't sound like he's dodging competition. It sounds like he's refusing the usual script. Some fans feel uneasy when a young quarterback, especially one with a huge name and a huge personality, moves like he has options. That's not proof of anything by itself, but it's part of why this story is so polarizing. Because the truth is, this debate isn't really Europe versus NFL. It's control versus tradition. And the next layer is the one the NFL can't ignore. Even if this specific rumor turns out to be exaggerated, the direction of the sport is moving this way anyway. Global markets, player-led media. The only door era is ending, and the league knows it. Here's the part that makes this story so explosive. It doesn't sound crazy because of Europe. It sounds crazy because of timing. 10 years ago, a quarterback prospect couldn't even imagine skipping the NFL machine. Not realistically. The league was the money, the spotlight, the only lane to superstardom. If you didn't like your situation, you still had to sit there and take it, because where else were you going to go? Now look at the world we're in. Changed the athlete timeline. Top players can earn real money before they ever sign a pro contract. They can build an audience while they're still in college. They can launch podcasts, brands, YouTube channels, clothing lines, endorsement portfolios, without asking a front office for permission. That doesn't replace NFL money, but it does replace something just as important: desperation. And the moment a player isn't desperate, the negotiation changes. That's why the European League Superdeal rumor caught on. Even if the exact numbers being repeated are inflated, the concept matches what athletes are already doing across sports, finding leverage outside the traditional gatekeepers. We've seen alternative leagues pop up. We've seen global markets become real. We've seen streaming and social media turn players into their own media companies. The NFL is still the king, but it's no longer the only way to be seen and paid. Now add the business side. Private investors chase growth. New leagues chase attention. And the easiest shortcut to attention is a name people already argue about. That's why, in theory, a league trying to level up would consider unusual incentives, guaranteed money, branding freedom, even equity-style structures. Not because they're trying to beat the NFL overnight, but because they're trying to buy relevance fast. And that's also where the skepticism stays healthy. European football leagues don't currently have NFL-level revenue. So when rumors claim a deal that sounds like an NFL mega extension plus ownership, it's fair to question the funding, the partners, and whether the structure is even plausible at scale. Big claims need big proof. But here's the bigger takeaway. The NFL's real vulnerability isn't losing talent to Europe. It's losing the assumption that the league controls the players' options. If Shedeur or any top quarterback can credibly sit across from a team and say, "I have other paths that still pay me, still protect me, still grow my brand," then the NFL's favorite pressure points get weaker. The timelines get looser. The threats sound emptier. And the old "be grateful" script stops working. So whether this specific story gets confirmed, corrected, or disappears, it already did its job. It forced fans to imagine a world where quarterbacks don't have to accept the deal in front of them. And the moment that becomes normal, the NFL isn't negotiating contracts anymore. It's negotiating control. And that brings us to the final question everyone's avoiding. Here's the part that makes this story so explosive. It doesn't sound crazy because of Europe. It sounds crazy because of timing. 10 years ago, a quarterback prospect couldn't even imagine skipping the NFL machine. Not realistically. The league was the money, the spotlight, the only lane to superstardom. If you didn't like your situation, you still had to sit there and take it, because where else were you going to go? Now look at the world we're in. Changed the athlete timeline. Top players can earn real money before they ever sign a pro contract. They can build an audience while they're still in college. They can launch podcasts, brands, YouTube channels, clothing lines, endorsement portfolios, without asking a front office for permission. That doesn't replace NFL money, but it does replace something just as important: desperation. And the moment a player isn't desperate, the negotiation changes. That's why the European League superdeal rumor caught on. Even if the exact numbers being repeated are inflated, the concept matches what athletes are already doing across sports, finding leverage outside the traditional gatekeepers. We've seen alternative leagues pop up. We've seen global markets become real. We've seen streaming and social media turn players into their own media companies. The NFL is still the king, but it's no longer the only way to be seen and paid. Now add the business side. Private investors chase growth. New leagues chase attention. And the easiest shortcut to attention is a name people already argue about. That's why, in theory, a league trying to level up would consider unusual incentives, guaranteed money, branding freedom, even equity-style structures. Not because they're trying to beat the NFL overnight, but because they're trying to buy relevance fast. And that's also where the skepticism stays healthy. European football leagues don't currently have NFL-level revenue. So when rumors claim a deal that sounds like an NFL mega extension plus ownership, it's fair to question the funding, the partners, and whether the structure is even plausible at scale. Big claims need big proof. But here's the bigger takeaway. The NFL's real vulnerability isn't losing talent to Europe. It's losing the assumption that the league controls the players' options. If Shedeur or any top quarterback can credibly sit across from a team and say, "I have other paths that still pay me, still protect me, still grow my brand," then the NFL's favorite pressure points get weaker. The timelines get looser. The threats sound emptier. And the old "be grateful" script stops working. So whether this specific story gets confirmed, corrected, or disappears, it already did its job. It forced fans to imagine a world where quarterbacks don't have to accept the deal in front of them. And the moment that becomes normal, the NFL isn't negotiating contracts anymore. It's negotiating control, and that brings us to the final question everyone's avoiding. So here, where this lands. The internet is arguing about Europe, but the real headline is leverage. Until there's real confirmation, the exact numbers and contract terms should be treated as unverified. But the reason this story won't die is because it exposes something the NFL doesn't want discussed too loudly. Most monster deals aren't truly guaranteed, and most players never get anywhere near ownership. If Shedeur Sanders is even entertaining a framework that includes guaranteed security, equity upside, and brand control, it signals a new era. Not just for him. For every elite quarterback watching, every agent taking notes, and every owner who's used to having the last word. And Deion's emotional celebration, that wasn't just pride. It was a warning shot. The old rules only work when players accept them. Now the only question is simple, and it's coming for the whole league next. When athletes can buy freedom, who's really in control?